Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news.
And welcome back to another edition of Issues in Education. Mondays, during the Noon Report, we give you a front row seat to all that's happening in the classroom with Dr. Ralph Kerr at the Teaching and Learning Institute. Ralph, welcome back to the program, sir. Hope you're surviving the bleak midwinter, I think is what they call it.
Thanks, Bob. Good to be with you again today.
Well, there is so much to talk about this week. We'll try to do it in 5 minutes or less, so strap in. Here we go. We'll begin in the Commonwealth of Virginia. You know, Ralph, this is what I consider to be the birthplace of the parental rights in education movement, given what we saw last year in Loudoun County and all the scandal there. But there's a new scandal. This has to do with National Merit Awards. 17 school districts in Virginia failed to let students know that they had won, and that cost those students thousands in lost scholarships. What's going on here, Ralph?
Well, this is just atrocious what's going on, and that is the school districts failed to report student results on the National Merit Awards. I believe they did it because they didn't want anybody to feel badly if they didn't score as high as some other students. The governor's response to that is that this may be actually a crime that was committed. He may be right.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those districts are now backtracking and blaming clerical errors, but you're right. Equity in education, that's a buzzword. There's another buzzword in education called SEL, S-E-L, social and emotional learning. Critics say this is a veiled attempt at critical race theory, but proponents are calling this crucial curriculum, especially in the age of COVID. Ralph, what are your thoughts on the matter?
Well, you know, when you look at it, it sounds fine. I think it really depends, and this is true in so many curriculum issues, what is really being taught. Some of that also is very much related to how the teacher deals with the teaching. And there again, I just want to put a plug in for Christian teachers who are in the classroom day after day. You know they're going to handle anything like this in a really appropriate way. If parents are concerned about it, then they need to be talking to the board and to the school leaders about what's really involved in it and get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. You mentioned boards this year in Pennsylvania. I think in every school district in the state except Philadelphia, all the school board seats are open seats, so there's going to be a mad dash to fill those seats. There's a group that's calling itself Education Voters PA. What are they all about in Pennsylvania?
Well, it's really interesting. At a surface level, when you look at their website, they are talking about things that I've promoted for years. Check your school board agenda. If there are questionable policies, talk to board members about that, and then monitor the school board meetings on a regular basis. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, you have to look underneath and see what else is involved. But let me just say, I certainly encourage people at this point in Pennsylvania to begin thinking about running for their local school boards. I did have a question from a listener asking if the Teaching and Learning Institute provides support for potential candidates, and my answer to them was yes, absolutely. If anybody is interested in us helping them with considering a run for their school board in Pennsylvania, please contact us.
And we'll give that website at the end, Ralph. The state Regents exams in New York, they start tomorrow, Tuesday the 24th. Ralph, any test-taking tips you care to share?
Well, here's some for parents to just roll out to their students that are taking the tests. First of all, listen to the instructions that are given, and then read the entire test through, and then answer the questions that you know first. If you don't know the answer to one, just leave it and go on to something that you do know, and then obviously go back to the questions that you skipped, and then finally just double-check your work.
Yep, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's not the first one out the door, doesn't get any points. I have to remind my son that every time. And then finally, Ralph, this was kind of interesting. This story broke late last week in Pennsylvania. 3 Democrats from the Philadelphia area are introducing legislation to observe a January 6th day in the public schools, kind of like we do with 9/11 and Pearl Harbor Day. What are your thoughts on that?
Bob, don't even go there with me.
I went
Please.
there. I'm sorry. This one demanded the Ralph Kerr reaction.
Yeah, well, here's my reaction. There are so many questions about what really happened on January 6th and what should have happened and who's responsible for what happened and who's responsible for what didn't happen. I can't see that going anywhere. I certainly hope it does not.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Already the Senate is saying that is dead on arrival, as they say. Hey, you mentioned the Pennsylvania listeners and all those open seats this year for school board. Christian, dear Christian, if you're listening, you want to serve your community, there's no better way. Ralph, you have a website to help them on their way. What is that, sir?
Thank you, Bob. We have a bunch of videos on that website, and it's simply whyrun.org, whyrun.org.